You're listening to Mind Over Me, the mental wellness podcast with me, Scott Carter. I am a licensed therapist. Here at Mind Over Me, I offer an unconventional approach to therapy and mental health in general. The therapy system is misguided and broken. So many people are turning to mental health professionals for help, and they're just not finding it. It's my goal to bring some unconventional means, unconventional views, and maybe some unconventional techniques to helping people find mental wellness. Instead of being dependent on a system or a medication or a professional for mental wellness or mental stability, my goal is to always empower and help people by teaching them how to help themselves. This podcast is about self-efficacy, self-determination, and self-empowerment. Every person needs to find a better connection with themselves. Whether you realize it or not, you are the answer to your problems. You just need better information, and I hope to give it to you. So, thank you for being here. Let's dive in. All right, my friends, welcome back. Glad you're here. Glad you're whistling. Glad you're listening. I'm glad you're here. I hope your journey is going okay. I hope you're hanging in there. I'm doing pretty good. Overall, I'm doing pretty good. Life has its ups and downs. It has its highs and lows. I am working to improve my relationship with struggles. That's one of the things that's been on my mind this summer, is to just completely change my outlook and my attitude about struggle, because that's where strength comes from. Strength only comes from one place, right? And that's from struggles. In general, we all seemingly have a really bad relationship with struggles and hardships and problems and mistakes and failures, blah, blah, blah. I tend to think that the issue lies within our perspective of those things. You can't get rid of problems, right? Can't get rid of struggles. Nor do I think that we should. I really don't. So that's been one of the things on my mind this summer, to just change my perspective. That struggle creates strength, and struggle is good medicine. In this episode, I'm going to talk about our emptiness problem collectively that we are experiencing. They just chronic feelings of emptiness that people are dealing with, struggling with. I think this is one of the reasons why we're experiencing a collective breakdown, is just pervasive, inescapable feelings of just being empty. We just feel empty and disconnected. And honestly, I think this is the type of thing that just really, really, really nags on people. They can sense it, they can feel it, they know it's there. Something's not right. Something's wrong. Something's missing. That's a big word that we hear. Something's missing. What is it, right? And so they look to fill that emptiness, and they just end up looking all in the wrong places, because they have a lot of bad information about what is going to help them feel connected and fulfilled and all of that. So I'm going to get into that. That's what this episode is about, solving your emptiness problem. Of course, I'm going to build on the previous episode that had to do with your shattered mind. If you haven't listened to the shattered mind episode, I'd like to strongly encourage you to do that, because a lot of what I'm going to talk about in this episode and going forward in other episodes is going to be built on the basic psychological theory that we all have our minds get broken into fragments and pieces, and that so many of our problems and dysfunctions and issues exist because of the interplay between those pieces or those fragments. That episode also, I was talking about it in that episode, the need to do shadow work and why shadow work is really important and why it's beneficial, what we get out of it. And it's just, shadow work is so awesome. It's such good stuff. And at the end of that episode, I made the suggestion that for people to keep a shadow work journal. Just get a notebook or a cheap journal, or an expensive one if you want, that's dedicated just to your shadow work, building your insights, learning to turn inwards, learn to self-evaluate, build your introspection, build your self-awareness, all that. And I had also decided, while recording the episode, that at the beginning of each episode, I was going to provide some shadow work prompts. And these are for you. This is your homework, for you to sit down and preferably write them out. You're going to get more from writing, and write them out. And just build it out. Learn from them and gain the insights that you're going to get from them. I'm a high accountability person. I'm a high accountability therapist. I have high expectations for myself. I hold myself to a high standard. So therefore, I hold other people to a high standard too. So my shadow work prompts are not for wimps. These are intended to stretch you and challenge you. If they're hard, if they hurt, if they're painful, learn to sit through the pain, deal with the pain, and work through it rather than just trying to get rid of it. I think that's another one of our problems. We're just trying to get rid of pain. So here are your shadow work journal prompts for this episode. And then we'll dive into the topic about emptiness. Okay, here we go. Number 1, how do I feel when my personal worldview is challenged? Is it difficult? Is it easy? Is it comfortable? Do I like it? Do I feel like it's good for me? Do I feel like it's bad for me? Write down what it's like when your view of things, of the world, of life, of other people is challenged. Number 2, do I welcome different points of view or do I avoid them? Number 3, how do I react or respond to people who don't agree with me, who don't see the world that I see it, and who challenge my point of view? How do I react to those people? How do I view those people? What is my attitude or belief or opinion of those people? And finally, why am I that way? What experiences have shaped me to be the way that I am? Usually with me in the shadow work journal prompts, I like to be able to challenge people to kind of dig in and look at like what experiences they've had, how were they raised, how did life go for them, why do they see life the way that they see it. It's always important to examine or look at, whatever has shaped you or what has molded you in life. You want to be able to examine that. Like, is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Do you want to be shaped and molded by the things that are shaping and molding you or not? Are those good things? Are those not good things? Maybe neutral, whatever. Okay, so there you go. There are your shadow work journal prompts of the day. And so let's get into this topic. I feel like this is an extremely important topic, maybe kind of a challenging one. Something that's been on my mind lately. To me, this topic is also really super important to me because I'm just trying to dig deeper and deeper and deeper into what is troubling us. I think it's fairly apparent and fairly obvious that our mental health, our well-being collectively as a society, is just sort of in a free fall. I don't realistically think that I can stop, this runaway truck that's flying down a hill. But I do think knowledge is power. I also think it's extremely important, for me at least, to always be thinking about contributing and creating rather than just consuming. I feel like we have too many consumers and there's not enough contributions and not enough, creativity. And I think everybody should. I think everybody has important things to contribute. And I think contribution is one of those things that helps us explore ourselves and get to know ourselves better as well. But this particular topic, I think we have a chronic emptiness epidemic. What do we want to? Is it an epidemic? Is it a pandemic? I'm going to call it an epidemic. We have a chronic emptiness problem. What I'm talking about here is this phenomenon where people just feel perpetually like they're empty. Like something's missing from their life. Regardless of maybe how good their external circumstances may be, they continue to feel like something is missing. I'm reminded of this lady who recently went pretty viral on TikTok. She seemed, young to me, but she's probably about, 30-ish years old. And she's sitting in her car, she's making this TikTok video, and she just basically said, okay, so I told my husband about 6 months ago that I'm thinking about getting a divorce. And she went on to describe how her husband is a really super good dude. He works hard. He's provided an amazing life for her and their kids. They have kids together. They have a nice house. They have everything they could ever possibly want and everything they could possibly need. They have a very, very good life. And yet she feels like just something's missing and that she wanted to get a divorce so that she could go and find whatever it is that was missing. But she also expressed that she felt like the relationship with her husband was supposed to provide that missing element. So I'm going to use that sort of as a running example. I didn't chime in on the video. It went super viral. I don't get any views on TikTok. I don't get views worth a damn. I used to. The video that has the most views has I could look millions in the millions. I have over 1 million likes on it. But in the last 2 months, I don't get any views on any of my videos. They're just I don't know what's going on. But I didn't chime in on it because I knew nobody would see it. I knew she wouldn't see it. But if I were to talk to her, if I was her therapist, I would say, well, I don't think the problem is that your external circumstances aren't good enough. I think your problem is that we're all struggling with this problem of feeling empty inside. We just feel empty. We just feel like something's missing. So what is it? What is missing? That's where things get quite abstract. Abstract means existing mostly in thought, right? Abstract means it's an idea, not something that you can really touch or is tangible. That's what's missing. There are intangible things within us that I believe are just sort of our core psychological need. And our modern culture, our society does almost nothing to provide for that need. So what am I talking about here? What is that need? Well, for one, I think we need to have better, deeper connections, okay? And our world, our society, our culture is so materialistic. There's just a lot of materialism. And frankly, I just don't think that gets us very far. I think it's just a distraction. I think our technology and our smartphones and our music and our apps and our addictions and our substances and our shopping and our blah, 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 I think all of that is just a very, very effective and extremely accessible distraction from what it is that we're really missing and what it is that we really need as human beings. Like there's a real core need there for us to be filled by something else, to have a deeper connection to something else. For example, like existentialism. Existentialism really is, right? It's the questions of our existence. It's the question of what is the point? What is the purpose of life? Why are we here? Why do we do what we do? What is it that gets us through the day? What is our purpose? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Once upon a time, there was a lot of emphasis on existentialism in therapy. There is actually an existentialism therapy model developed by Viktor Frankl. If you don't know Viktor Frankl, he was a Jew in a concentration camp who survived. He wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. He was a psychiatrist or a psychologist, and he developed therapy modalities out of existentialism, including existential therapy and another one called logo. Sorry, got cut off there. Another one, existential therapy, and another one that's called logotherapy. You don't really hear much about them anymore. I mean, they're kind of old school. I still love them. I still think they're fantastic. I think it's one of the things that we're missing. I think it's one of the things that we need to bring back. So going back to this, like we have this inner emptiness, right? This inescapable sense of inner emptiness. And it's like our psychology, our psyche, our subconscious, it's always going to just subtly remind us that it's there, right? We become aware of, I just feel like something's missing. And the trouble is with people now is they falsely think or have come to believe, falsely again, that emptiness is filled by things that are external, right? Well, it's like, well, maybe I need a different job. Maybe I need a different house. Maybe I need to live in a certain place. Maybe I need to make more money. Maybe I need to drive a certain car. Maybe I need to look at, on and on and on and on and on and on. And people run on this hamster wheel of life trying to fill that emptiness through external means. So it's like trying to fill an internal need through external means, if that makes sense, right? The fact of the matter is you cannot satisfy certain needs with external means, right? Like there's not enough money in the world that can solve that necessarily. You can't buy it, you can't purchase it. And I think that's where a lot of people get lost. Because I mean, you really can lose yourself in the process, right? Of trying to fulfill that need. Like maybe you get deeply involved into a career that's full of money and full of status, and the harder that you work, the more that you lose yourself. After a certain amount of time, you're just sort of asking yourself, like, who am I, and why do I do this? So, what's actually missing? The number one thing that you are missing, if you're feeling this emptiness, it's a connection with yourself. Okay, and I feel like nobody talks about this. I feel like hardly anybody in psychology or therapy talks about this. I talk about it simply because I ended up doing a lot of my own inner work, and it has been what I was looking for. Let me give an example. There was a time in my life, even not that long ago, just a few short years ago, when I was sure that I wanted to move out of the U.S. I wanted to live in a different country and work in a different country. I had become aware of a couple of countries that I was interested in, knowing that they have a shortage of like mental health professionals, and I can get a work visa and probably a good job in some of these countries because they have been known to outsource these types of jobs because they just struggle to fill the need within their own country. And so I just had this nagging feeling like I needed to run away, and I did that. I was kind of a rolling stone. In my 30s, I was moving constantly. I didn't stay in one place for a long time. I was always going somewhere new, and I just could never figure out how to fulfill that or just fill that emptiness. Again, it got so bad that I became confident and pretty sure that what I actually needed was, again, to move, to leave, to just flee the country. It didn't work out. I'm actually kind of glad it didn't work out because in the long run, I was able to solve it. I was able to solve the issue. I no longer want to just run or get away or just flee the country or just pack up and move again. I managed to solve that core existential problem by creating a better relationship with myself, a better connection with myself. What comes along with that is this thing that we call identity, which is a really, really tricky term, a really, really tricky concept, and one that I think is really highly misunderstood. I like to go to the old school psychologists on this stuff. I think the old school psychologists had a lot to offer when it came to ideas like the identity. For example, Carl Jung, who's the hierarchy of needs, Maslow, Viktor Frankl, several of these guys. There are others too, where they talked about this thing called identity. Erik Erikson, here's another one, old school psychologist that talked a lot about identity, the formation of identity. He was big on that. He even changed his name to Erik Erikson because he wanted to, because he saw himself as this guy named Eric, and that was his identity. That's who he was. So he changed his name to Erik Erikson. So here's what I've come to see as identity. It's really who you are, obviously, but identity is really kind of a tricky thing. And you can't really have a sense of identity if you don't know yourself very well. It's very, very difficult to have a sense of identity, in fact, if you don't know yourself very well. And too many of us are trying to attach our identity to external things, right? Oh, I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor, I like scrambled eggs, not eggs Benedict. I wear Nike, whatever, right? Like we're trying to attach identity to those things. It doesn't work very well. It usually still leaves us feeling pretty empty. Or worse, too many people, I think, nowadays, there's so many things I believe that's contributing to our overall free fall in our mental health. And one of those things is where we are attaching our identity. Some of the really negative places that people attach identity that I see a lot. Number one is in mental illness, where it's like people attach their identity to some sort of mental illness. Oh, I'm incapable because I have ADHD. That's who I am. I'm neuroatypical. That's my identity. And like, I don't like that. I don't really support that because like when I've noticed when people do that, they become extremely attached to limitations. You should be very, very careful about not attaching your identity to mental illness or mental health issues, because frankly, those can be helped and sometimes totally resolved. But as long as you're attaching your identity to a mental illness, you're going to hang on to it. You're going to cling to it. And I even think that our society has come to celebrate way too much victimhood or like a victim stance in people, where it's like, oh, the bigger victim you are, the more problems that you have, the more of a hero you are. I think that is highly, highly, highly problematic. So you often see young people who are sort of trying to outdo each other in this regard. Oh, well, I have it worse because I have it worse because I have it worse because... And it's just like a race to the bottom. So attaching your identity to mental health issues, to mental illnesses is a big problem. The other big problem that I see is attaching your identity to a group identity. Oh, I'm an atheist. That's my identity, or I'm a Democrat. I'm a Republican. That one especially, like associating yourself to some arbitrary political party in one blip in the history books. I think that one is highly, highly problematic too. But attaching yourself to a group and having your identity like rest in a group, the trouble with that is that groups tend to shift their values on a whim. Groupthink is bad, right? Like when you get groups of people together, their collective IQ will often, not in every case, but their collective IQ tends to deteriorate. People lose their individualism, their individuality within the group, and they are basically at the whims of the group. The group can change its values whimsically on a dime, unpredictably, without rhyme or without reason, and then you're forced to either change your values too on a whim, or risk being alienated from the group. And as I've told many other people and said in many other places, like, taking a lot of psychology at a bachelor's level was always interesting to me. I've always been very, very interested in human behavior. Abnormal psychology was interesting and sometimes a little scary, but the class that really scared me was social psychology. That's when human behavior gets really, really, really super dark, really scary. Human behavior has taken, like traditionally, historically, has taken the darkest turns, right, because of these social group dynamics. Okay, so don't look for identity in mental illness, and don't look for identity within a group. Okay, so what is identity? What are we talking about here? So again, we're talking about a connection to yourself. If you're struggling, if you as a person, you've never really learned to kind of go inward or to look at yourself, you can always learn. But to look at yourself, to practice insight and awareness, introspection, conscientiousness, all that stuff. If you never really learned how to do that, that's okay. You can always learn how to do it. I believe that's probably one of the most important things we can ever learn to do. It is a skill. It is a muscle that you exercise. But when you learn to look at yourself and be able to examine yourself, what happens is your identity starts to become this very enigmatic but interesting thing. Some people will say that you find yourself. Some people will say that you make yourself. I believe it's both. So when you're finding yourself, here's how I think of it, is like you find yourself. You just, it's hard to describe, but it's almost like this this ball of molten metal. It's without shape. It's without form, right? It's without identity. That's because it hasn't been shaped yet, right? It hasn't been or nothing's been done to this piece of metal, this raw piece of material that is you, right, to give it shape or form or purpose. You're not born with these things. So I've noticed that people, it's like, well, I don't know who I am. And it's like, yeah, that's great. Because nobody's born with this. Anybody that has a good sense of who they are, or if they have a good sense of purpose, is because they went out there and they earned it, man. Like, they worked for it. They got out there and they earned it. You can't expect yourself to have shape or form or purpose or identity or any of those things if you've never put any effort into it, if you've never taken the time to actively create it or build it, shape it, etc., etc., etc. So therefore, what you want to do is actively engage yourself in things that are going to give you that sense that are going to just help shape you and mold you and purpose you, give you purpose and shape and form, right? Now, the number one thing that is going to help do that for you is to do difficult things. You must do hard things. This is one thing that I'm constantly publishing on my Twitter, my X feed, whatever. You must do hard things. We live in a culture and a society that's extremely adverse and extremely allergic and extremely avoidant of doing anything that's difficult. We have been fed this false belief that life is supposed to be easy, comfortable, and pleasurable. Those things will destroy you. Those things will harm you. Those things will, it's just, yeah. And if that's how you live entirely, those things are going to ruin you. Okay. You must do hard things. Okay. When you do hard things, they shape you, they mold you, they give you purpose, and they give you identity. That's just how it is. Now, the more difficult things that you do, the quicker, faster, and you're going to find identity and build your identity, build your connection, fill that emptiness. But it's going to happen quickly, but it's going to be a lot deeper. When you do really difficult things and you force yourself outside of your comfort zones, you're going to really, really connect with yourself. And that is the solution, to connect with yourself. That's what makes a really strong, connected, powerful, confident, happy, fulfilled human being. Now, I'll give a couple examples of this. I don't remember where I came across this guy. Maybe it was on YouTube, but there was this guy. He wrote a book about walking across America. He had gotten out of the military. He ended up homeless. I think he had some PTSD. It said that he was in Tennessee. He walked to the East Coast, and then he walked from the East Coast to the West Coast, and then he walked back from the West Coast to the East Coast. So more than twice, right? He spanned the entire length of the United States. For those of you that live here, you appreciate how big and vast this country actually is. He wrote a whole book about it and how it changed his life. It changed him. It gave him a sense of purpose, and it gave him a sense of identity. I saw another book on my Audible feed yesterday, I think. I didn't purchase the book. I thought about it. I still might. I read the synopsis. It sounds great. It's about a lady who basically sort of did the same thing on a motorcycle, where she was kind of solo, and she was riding her motorcycle and went on this super long motorcycle trip. And she wrote a book about it, right? Because when you have experiences like that, you're like, damn, I need to write a book, right? So here it comes, and there you are, and you've got a book about this, right? And so those are some fairly extreme examples. And another one that comes to mind, again, book, but also a movie. Years ago, there was a book called Into the Wild. It was a true story. It was also a book about a young man who, I think it was from Connecticut, and his parents were wealthy and snobby or something, and they were trying to get him to go to a college, and they were just obsessed with money and status, and the kid basically disappeared. He drove his car as far as he could drive it, and then he got out and he started walking. He worked on farms. He went across the United States. He ended up in Alaska. He found this old bus where somebody had obviously been living, and then he was living in this bus, and he ended up dying out there in the wilderness. But the point of the story was that he lived free. Like the last picture that he took of himself, he was sitting outside this bus in Alaska, and he was smiling. He looked happy. Those are pretty extreme things, but it's like, why is that a popular, famous story, right? Because it's like that resonates with people. They're like, holy shit, I wish I could do that. I wish I could run away from this crazy life and do something like that. Okay, so just to wrap this up, I think I've kind of covered mostly of what I wanted to cover here. Just to give a very, very brief summary, we have this chronic emptiness problem. We are trying to fill it with external materialistic things, and it doesn't work. In the process, the more we try to fill it with materialism and external things, the more empty we're going to feel, the more frustrated we're going to feel. The trick is that we need to create, a deeper, more positive connection with ourselves. So we just have to do that inner work. We have to create a connection with ourselves, and we can't do that through external means. Okay? That's my thoughts on that. Our chronic emptiness problem. Part of why we're just sort of in this free fall. In that summary, go do hard things. You must do hard things. The sooner you can accept that you must do hard things, the better. I had someone reach out to me on TikTok, and a very, very nice message. I really appreciated it. He said that, I made a TikTok video where I said, you must do hard things, and life is going to be hard no matter what you do, so you might as well accept it, choose your challenges, and take them on. And that little one piece of advice, he said, really changed his life, and I really appreciated that he reached out. Anyways, so there you have it. Thanks again for listening. Don't forget to share this, follow the podcast, help me grow my audience. And thanks for listening. I still haven't figured out my new sign-off, but go deal with your demons. That's what I've got so far. Maybe I'll change it to this one. You must do hard things. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.